Welcome. I'd like to call the July 1st regular meeting, council meeting and work study session to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, may we please have a roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Lisa Borowski,
Present.
Vice Mayor Mary Ann McCallum,
Present.
Council Members Jan Dubascus, here. Barry Graham, Adam Quasman, Kathy Littlefield, here. And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Greg Caton.
Here.
City Attorney Louis Santea.
Present.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews.
Here.
Acting City Auditor Lake Clough.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And this evening we have Scottsdale Police Officers Sholak, Savage, and Lowing, as well as Scottsdale firefighters Drew Edwards and Derek Clucker. If anyone requires their assistance, please let a member of our staff know. For the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to call on Councilwoman Dubascus. Thank you. And for the invocation, I am pleased to welcome Pastor Hank Young from Scottsdale Bible Church, and he's the enrichment pastor. Welcome. Are you which campus are you at?
The Shea campus.
Yep, okay, that's right. Okay, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. If you'd like, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we love you. We thank you for who you are, our creator, our sustainer, and the giver of every good thing. Thank you that you deeply love every person in the city. We're thankful that you, the ultimate authority, would entrust men and women with the responsibility to serve their community. I thank you for each member of this council and their willingness to serve and to carry the weight of leadership for the good of the city. May we each look to Jesus as the ultimate example of leadership found in serving others. We thank you for the freedoms we enjoy in this nation to gather in this way, the freedom to present and to challenge ideas in a way that define the good and the just together. And God, as we prepare for the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding, we're especially mindful of how precious this gift is. We pray that you would provide wisdom and discernment into these matters tonight. Lord, may a unifying love for the city and for one another break through any disagreements or challenges. May clarity and humility be the markers of our time here tonight. And through this time, may the people of Scottsdale feel known, seen, protected, and cared for. I pray that you bless our public servants, bless their work, their families, their communities, so that they may continue to serve and to love others as you've called them. And above all, Christ, I pray that your name would be known and magnified. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor, for being here. We appreciate it. All right, moving on to the mayor's report. I'm thrilled to recognize July as Parks and Recreation Month in Scottsdale. Two very important items in our city. Our parks, trails, community centers, and recreation programs help make Scottsdale an exceptional place to live. They promote health and wellness, connect neighbors, preserve our natural beauty, and provide spaces where community members can gather and thrive. Today, we also recognize the dedicated parks and recreation professionals, our staff, who work every day to keep these spaces safe, welcoming, and accessible. Their efforts enhance the quality of life for all residents and visitors that enjoy them throughout Scottsdale. On behalf of the City of Scottsdale, I am proud to present a proclamation this evening recognizing July officially as Parks and Recreation Month. I encourage everyone to get outside. Well, it's pretty hot out, but yes, go at night or early in the morning. Explore our parks and trails and take advantage of the outstanding programs and facilities available throughout our beautiful city. With that, I'd like to invite Parks and Recreation Deputy Director Kevin McKee forward to accept the proclamation, and I think we will all deliver that to you if you're so inclined. All right, we can take a picture. Oh, Nick Molinari, of course. I don't know why I didn't have your name down. And Stephanie there is with us too. we're going to stay down there. That's a good idea. Next, we have the exciting opportunity to recognize employees with 20 or more years of service as of June and July 2026. With that, I'll turn it over to our new Communications Senior Director. Congratulations on that, Holly Peralta.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Borowski and members of City Council. Pleased to be here tonight to recognize some employees who have celebrated significant milestones with the City of Scottsdale. I'd like to start with our June service anniversaries, and I know we have 2 employees here with us tonight. We have Wayman Allen, who I saw sitting in the audience. He's here with his wife, Cello, who's also a city employee, and his son, Wayman II, who was amazed that his dad has worked here 20 years. But let me share a little bit about Wayman. He started with the city back in June of 2006. He was a facilities HVAC technician, and later he transitioned to solid waste services, and he has been an important part of their supervisory team. He has taken on the challenge of supervising the brush and bulk, the commercial and the residential collection programs, and he currently leads the residential program. And we're so glad to have him here tonight. Wayman, if you'd like to come up, and we'll recognize you. I have 2 more employees to mention. We also have, with 20 years of service, Attorney Joe Padilla, I believe, is here with us tonight. Come on up. And his work is so complex, I don't know that I can accurately describe it, but he does a great job with maintaining several contracts in the city and making sure we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing correctly. And then in July, we have a service anniversary. Our very own Chief of Police, Joe LeDuc, who's celebrating 35 years of service. And I think to say a few words about our chief, I'm going to invite up Assistant Chief Rich Slavin.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Borowski, members of council, city leadership, members of the community. Thank you for recognizing one of Scottsdale's finest public servants, Chief Joe LeDuc. It's an honor to have the opportunity to say a few words about our chief and my dear friend. For 35 years, Chief Joe LeDuc has served the city with quiet professionalism, unwavering integrity, and extraordinary commitment to public service. Joe began his career in the Scottsdale Police Department in 1991, obviously at the age of 7.5. During those 3.5 decades of service, he has served in virtually every major functional part of the department, from patrol officer to investigator, from trainer to internal affairs, from district operations to professional standards, and ultimately becoming our chief of police. For people, few people have experienced the organization from literally every corner of the organization, giving him a unique perspective, making his leadership even that much stronger. He's a graduate of the FBI National Academy. He's taught leadership to law enforcement professionals across the country, helped build an award-winning servant leadership program that continues to shape the next generation of leaders. As chief, Joe leads more than 700 employees, serving 250,000 residents, nearly 13 million visitors, and under his leadership, Scottsdale's remained one of the safest cities in America, consistently ranked in the top 5% nationwide. He has guided this department through one of the most significant organizational transformations in its history, strengthening operations, improving accountability, embracing innovation, and positioning the department for the future. But statistics and organizational charts only tell part of the story. Those of us who've had the privilege of serving alongside Joe know that his greatest accomplishment has never been a program or recognition. It's been the people that he has influenced. Joe has always believed that taking care of people is the first responsibility of every leader. He's challenged us to lead with humility, to serve others before ourselves, and to never lose sight of why we wear this badge. Earlier this year, Joe received the City of Scottsdale's Drinkwater Leadership Award for his fearless leadership, community-minded, and selfless service. It is a fitting honor for someone whose career has been dedicated to making this city safer and the organization better than he found it. On a personal note, I've had the privilege of serving alongside Joe for much of those 35 years. I've watched him lead in moments of celebration and moments of crisis. I've watched him make difficult decisions when there were no easy answers. Through it all, one thing has never changed, and that was your character. Leadership is often measured by titles and accomplishments, but character is measured by what people say when you're not in the room. Chief, I've heard those conversations when you weren't in the room for years, and they always remain the same. People trust you, they respect you, and they know that you care. Chief LeDuc, your legacy won't simply be measured by the policies you wrote, the organizational changes you led, or the awards you've received. It'll be measured by the hundreds of leaders that you've mentored, the thousands of lives you've touched, the example you've set for all of us who've had the privilege of serving beside you. So, on behalf of the police department, the city of Scottsdale, I want to just, and from me personally, say thank you. Congratulations on 35 remarkable years of service. Mayor Borowski, members of the council, city leadership team, thank you for recognizing Chief LeDuc in this very special way. I can't think of anyone more deserving of the key to the city than Chief LeDuc. Congratulations.
Let's all go take a picture with these wonderful employees of the city of Scottsdale. All right. Thank you all. Congratulations. And I neglected to mention, I have a special announcement, PSA. I want to wish Councilwoman McAllen happy birthday. Yeah. Yeah, we should sing. I don't know. I'm not a singer, but somebody
That's
else
okay.
can sing.
I can admit it. 62 last Friday. Thank you. I wanted to mention to Holly, like the mayor said, congratulations. But I would like to see, and I think the council would also, in the future, to have the retirees who recently retired at the same time, since that's the ultimate amount of time with the city, also recognized. Just recently this week, we had Scott Stenson, who served 36 years at our fire department, just retired. And then we had Travis Williams, who worked in our Parks and Recreation department, followed his mom's leadership for a long time, and she was my boss. I've known him since he was a little kid. He just graduated, isn't that funny, retired after 37 years with the city. So congratulations to both Travis and Scott.
And one final celebratory announcement. It's our key #1 volunteer in the mayor's office, Jeff Barnes' birthday today. So lots of excitement going on. So we should have had a cake for everybody. All right, moving right along to business. As is the case in every meeting, tonight during the meeting, the council may make a motion to recess into executive session in the event we need legal advice on any applicable item on the agenda. If so authorized by the council, the executive session would be held immediately and will not be open to the public. Let's see. As a reminder, neither council members or, this is all new, nor members of the public are permitted to engage in electioneering during tonight's meeting. So, moving on to the meeting minutes. approvals. I will entertain a motion unless there's any revisions or a request to discuss. Entertain a motion to approve special meeting number 1 minutes of June 9th, 2026.
So moved.
All right, please indicate your vote. On this evening's consent agenda, we have items 1 through 20. Do members of the council have any questions on the consent agenda or wish to move any of the items to the consent agenda? I know we have a conflict. Councilwoman DeBasquez, would you like to expand on that?
Yes, I have out of abundance of caution, I have a conflict that I will declare for consent to item number 10.
Okay, and so why don't we go ahead, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and take a vote on items 1 through 9 and 11 through 20.
Mayor, I apologize, we have some public comment.
Oh, we do indeed, sorry. First, we'll start with Patricia Badenoch, and that's on item number 12. Please, welcome.
Okay. Good evening, Patty Badenoch, 50-year resident of Scottsdale. I know that the garage is a done deal. However, notable speakers in favor don't care about the town's historical value with this garage. I question the selection process of Chase. The argument stating of its efficiency factor should not have been a selling point. If preservation of the westmost western town is honored, and it still is, among many of our citizens, not to mention the tourists, so much for citizens are first, the citizens were neglected, ignored by thousands of signatures collected by Steve Sutton for a current review on the parking needs. I believe the mayor also requested this. Independently, I visited most of the shops to get their feedback and collected names, phone numbers, and emails who did not want the garage built. So what are we getting? A nice-looking garage, which is a precast cookie-cutter off-site rendering to crane in and slab into place. Yes, efficient, but efficiency should not be a deciding factor of the selection process if preservation of the historic nature is still of greater interest. So what do we have again? A garage completely out of place for probably setting the tone for further redevelopment. Since I have some time, just to show you that I really did my due diligence about going to all of these people, I have about 50 of the shops that said they even never heard of the garage being done or didn't want it. And talking mostly about the merchants, but not the property owners. The property owners don't want to have the historic value be of a legal matter because they are interested in redevelopment. So I think we need to have that level of understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Next, we have French Thompson and Janie White, then Jude Now.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council and all the guests here. I'd also signed up for 10, but apparently we went to 11 or 12 right away. So one of the things I'd tell you is as a retailer, we need that kind of parking in Old Town Scottsdale. They've put a lot of time and energy into designing it so it fits with the historic area. Honestly, I don't know how anybody could think that it could hurt that area by having it there, but I know that there's a lot of people that are saying that it's going to be terrible. Well, when it's built, go take a look at it again, because they've spent a lot of time and money to make it fit in with the historical area. It's going to look great. But retailers understand that they need to have more parking for walk-in businesses. Basically, Old Town has now a huge baseball stadium with $65 million spent to enlarge it and make it for more people, no more parking added. They did $40 million on the Civic Center Plaza out here, no more parking added. So the city is bringing more and more people to this area, and yet have never added any more parking. So this is basically just playing catch up. This isn't going ahead and putting in a fifth lane on the freeway that nobody's going to use. People are going to use it. When I started working in Old Town Scottsdale in 1974, I literally was parking my car on that piece of dirt that the city owned. That's been a parking lot as long as I've lived in Arizona. Doing that, building it, is going to help Old Town. It's not going to be sacrilegious to a Catholic church, because I did a bunch of research. You know, Catholic churches own parking garages for people to come when they go to church. They own them. You know, the Catholic Church is the largest individual property owner in America, commercial property. They own all that property. It's not going to hurt that church. In fact, that church doesn't even hold services except for maybe 3 times a year and maybe a wedding here and there. It's going to bring more people, more tourists to it by having places to park. So I just want to say, I'm sorry this parking gate ever started. It's mind-boggling that anybody that wasn't a retailer, that doesn't have a business down there, could come in and start saying, we don't want it, when they have no vested interest in it. They don't know that they have people that come down there and say there's no place to park, and we went to Fashion Square instead because Fashion Square's got parking. So I urge you to go ahead and just, all of you, vote for this tonight. It's the right thing to do, and Scottsdale will appreciate it when it's done. Thank you.
Thank you. Janie White.
Excuse me, hello, Mayor and Council. I do have a question, though. This is on the consent agenda. Is it consented? Because I know number 10 was a question, but nobody said number 12. Isn't this number 12, our parking garage?
Just to clarify, it can be on the consent agenda item, and you can still speak on it as a public comment.
Oh, okay, all right. So Mayor and Council, my name is Janie White. My family has owned retail property in historic Old Town for more than 70 years. As a longtime property owner with multiple retail tenants, I can tell you firsthand that historic Old Town needs more parking. The council has already approved $6 million for the design and pre-construction work necessary to add 2 levels to the Corral Garage. Yet there continues to be a persistent effort to stop the project. It raises an obvious question, why? Especially when we know that selling the property for redevelopment was already contemplated. Without repeating arguments you've already heard, here are several straightforward reasons why additional parking is needed. The Civic Center was transformed into a venue capable of hosting events up to 3,000 attendees, yet no corresponding parking was added. And so here's an interesting thing we found out in the task force. The Civic Center parking lot is too short for cars to get in. I used to be able to drive in there, and I can't now. The car hits the top. Someone mentioned maybe they added pavement to make it a little shorter. So people with trucks, cars, things with roof racks can't get in. And then the giant public parking lots up on Fifth Avenue, those are 8 foot 2 inches. So there's something else. People that would want to park there, probably a lot of them can't, that have bigger cars and stuff, but we just figured that out. The community recently lost access to the 100-space Honor Health parking lot. New restaurants and businesses continue to open in Civic Center and historic Old Town without any significant increase. Another thing we found out on the task force is that cold beers and cheeseburgers, sombreros, all those restaurants up there are typically packed, and I've been like, why is that? So I was riding my bike down there the other day looking for homeless people, which I found, and I noticed there's a gigantic parking lot right behind those people, those restaurants. So it's so easy. Someone can just say, wow, look at all this parking. I'll just eat at beers and cheeseburgers or whatever. So that's another deal. Calls for yet another parking study are merely a delay tactic. The same individuals demanding a study for the Corral Garage did not insist on a parking study for the northeast parking structure you are considering tonight and tomorrow. If the concern were truly about gathering more data, the standard would be applied consistently. The need is clear. The project has already been vetted. Voters approved it. Businesses need it. Please move forward and build a garage. The garage is amazing. We love it. And to Patty's signatures that she's gathered, I talked to some of the business owners. They were freaked out. They were told stuff that wasn't true. They didn't understand what was going on. So, you know, you can't pretty much count any of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jude now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Forgive me, I'm going to have to read from my phone here. My thoughts, and my name's Jude Now. I'm the general manager, owner, and voting member of the Best Western Plus Sundial at 7320 East Camelback Road. I also live in Old Town Scottsdale at 7307 East Minnesota Avenue. And I have the pleasure and honor to serve on the Mayor's Downtown Task Force. I support moving forward with this project, number 12 on the agenda, the Old Town Parking Corral. The question of whether Scottsdale should build this parking structure has already been studied through the years with public outreach, planning, and multiple council approvals. At some point, government has to honor the process it established. Businesses, residents, and taxpayers depend on the city following through on decisions after they've been thoroughly vetted. Regarding that process with another parking study at this stage doesn't provide certainty, it simply delays the project the council has already approved. As someone who knows, works, and lives in Old Town every day, I know that reliable public parking is essential infrastructure. It supports businesses, visitors, employees, and the continued economic success of downtown. I respectfully ask the council to honor its previous decisions and move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's the last speaker on item number 12. And on consent agenda, I'm not sure why these are backward, but I'm going to go ahead and pull item number 12 just because I want to vote against it, but I'll wait on that.
Mayor, I apologize. We do have one more speaker on item 12. It's
Oh,
Bob
that's
Petch.
right. Bob Petchman just signed up. That's right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. That was my question. Is anybody pulling it? And you just said you're going to pull it. So I don't want to relitigate this. Many people have spoken. I can tell you that by this point, about almost $6 million has been spent between the design services and the pre-construction services. And what's before you today is $12 million to finish it. But I would like to point out the following. Tom Frankel provided a letter from, I think, 45, 47 parcel owners that were in the area that they said they wanted. They're the real stakeholders, by the way, not the people that go to the farmer's market. And they said it's needed. The Civic Center has been repurposed to have events that can have up to 3,000 people in the amphitheater alone without adding one single parking space. We just lost the Honor Health lot. 100 spaces. And then the other thing is that the Civic Center has been repurposed for growth. And growth is not a bad word in this case. It means more businesses, more restaurants. I know there's one more restaurant that's coming there. Pinion is a great restaurant, needs parking. Buco de Beppo is being remodeled right now to become Drake's Hollywood. It's going to be a fantastic place. That's going to require a lot of parking. There's another major restaurant coming to the Civic Center. And there's another major restaurant right by that parking location, not to be named, within a block. The area is going to draw a lot more people. I mean, the fact that the Old Town Tavern is on the agenda, which needs parking, and they're going to be charged money for fake spaces, and the argument is made you don't need parking, is just laughable. It's just laughable. The fact that it's on the same agenda, on the same night. And they need parking, they don't have parking, and people are saying, oh, well, we have not plenty of parking. There's fake outrage by certain people, not to be named, you know who they are, that, oh, we need to be stewards of the, of the money, we can't spend all this money without doing a parking study. The same people didn't complain about the Northeast Quadrant, which, by the way, is on your agenda tonight. Nobody pulled it. All right? Nobody pulled it. Nobody complains about that. Nobody says, hey, how are we spending $15 million worth of general fund money without doing a parking study? So it's fake outrage. It's selective outrage. And by the way, I fully support the Northeast Quadrant parking. Fully support it. Support that. Support ours. It's fake outrage. It's selective outrage. And we know why all this is being done. You know, to harm Barry Graham politically. So let's call it election season outrage. Thank you.
So we're not supposed to be electioneering from the speaker or the dais. However, I'm going to wait I really don't need to pull this. I just want to comment on it. So before we vote, I'll do that. But let's move to consent agenda item number 11, which is French Thompson.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council, my City Council. I love you guys. Sometimes I don't agree with you, but I love you. I'm glad you're here. I, too, support the garage in the Northeast Quadrant. Those people up there need parking, too. But it's a real interesting thing if you want to compare the two garages. One of them's got parking gate all over it, and the other one has nothing on it. It's a very interesting thing that only 7 citizens of Scottsdale were allowed to vote to build the parking garage in the Northeast Quadrant. But over 55,000 people were able to vote on the bond project. So 55,000 people had the ability to vote to have the parking garage at the Corral, but only 7 people that are citizens of Scottsdale were allowed to vote to build that garage. Those 7 people that got to vote are city council members. Those are the only citizens that voted to build that garage. Now, I'm not against that garage in any way, shape, or form because I know it needs it. But when you start having the numbers and say, this whole huge group of people, of citizens of Scottsdale are able to vote for it, and yet these little tiny bit of people get to have another one that's going to be just as expensive. I don't know why there isn't more outrage and a parking study being requested for the other one. Or was it really that they just wanted somebody to build an apartment where the garage is and get free underground parking? Because there was a meeting in City Hall with the developer talking about buying that piece of property after it had already been approved to be built. So there's just a lot of questions that I think you guys that are against it should really look in the background. Why was it really against it? It isn't for the beautification or the historical area. It really wasn't because it's going to be sacrilegious to a church. It's because somebody wanted to buy it and turn it into an apartment. The city of Scottsdale doesn't need another downtown apartment. So I just want to tell you, if you leave this number 11 on the parking on the consent agenda, go for it. I think that's a great idea. Just vote for it on the consent agenda. Get that garage built too. The more parking we have in downtown, more people can visit, more people can have a place to park, and more businesses are doing better. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda number 20, French Thompson, you're up again if you'd like to speak again on that one.
Address still on file. Let's do this marketing plan. Let's have the city do it. I think it's a great idea. I think the city's doing a really good job so far. And I just love knowing that the city is actually investing time and money and energy into paying attention to Old Town Scottsdale again. You know, it's an incredible area. You walk through it, there's a lot of diversity. There's so many small businesses down there. In just 2 blocks, there's almost 100 different small businesses in just 2 blocks. You know, it encompasses a whole huge area, Old Town Scottsdale, much larger than what used to be downtown. But putting it in the city's hands, very capable hands. I've seen what they want to do. I've listened to what they're talking about doing. I've read the reports. I think it's a heck of a good thing for Scottsdale, and I really hope that nobody votes against it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we have Janie White.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm Janie White. My family has owned and operated retail properties in historic Old Town Scottsdale for more than 70 years, and I speak today as someone whose family's livelihood depends on the right visitors finding our shops, galleries, and restaurants. The proposed Old Town marketing plan is strong in many respects, but it needs one essential addition: district-specific strategies that both promote each district on its own merits and intentionally connect them into a single integrated Old Town experience unique to Scottsdale. We can and should do both. Advertise the arts, Fifth Avenue, entertainment, and historic districts independently to their ideal audiences, while also marketing curated, event-driven itineraries that move guests across districts in a single visit. Right now, we're seeing more visitors, but fewer of them are the qualified, higher-spending guests that sustain retailers, galleries, and sit-down restaurants in historic Old Town. Many visitors are drawn by nightlife and party tourism. They boost counts, but too often they don't convert to meaningful sales for the businesses that define our downtown. We need campaigns that target the people who actually buy: collectors, art buyers, design clients, culinary tourists, and luxury hotel guests who expect a refined Scottsdale experience. Concretely, I asked the city to number one, define baseline district demographics and spending profiles today and publish measurable KPIs, that's key performance indicators, that track changes over time, including age cohorts, spending power, repeat visits, and overnight stay conversion. Fund district, or number two, fund district tailored creative. Luxury and collector messaging for the Arts District, curated shopping itineraries for Fifth Avenue, family-friendly daytime programming for the Historic District, and an elevated Old Town After Dark pathway that routes nightlife guests into dining and cultural experiences rather than only bar-centered activity. Use hotels and resorts as distribution channels with concierge toolkits and geo-fenced messaging that bring resort guests into historic Old Town for afternoon galleries, design showrooms, and dinner reservations. Measure success by economic conversion, merchant sales, average spend per visit, and hotel to district conversion rates, not just visitor counts or impressions. Historic Old Town is one of Scottsdale's most valuable assets because it's authentic, walkable, and rooted in local business. As the city increases marketing investment, those dollars should produce measurable benefits for the merchants and cultural institutions that have defined Scottsdale for generations. By combining independent district promotion with integrated event-driven itineraries, we can amplify what makes Old Town Scottsdale special and ensure marketing dollars convert into substantial or sustainable economic value. Thank you for your time and for considering district-specific strategies. Oops. Should I finish the sentence, or?
We always give someone a few more seconds, so.
Oh, okay.
If you're,
strategies that will strengthen Old Town for visitors and longstanding local businesses alike.
thank you for being conscientious. We appreciate it. Let's see, one additional speaker on number 20. We have Bob Pedron.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I've spoken on this item before, and I don't want to repeat myself. So I'm a part of the mayor's downtown task force, and one of the benefits of being part of the task force is that I get to meet a lot of other people from different districts that I would normally not meet or talk to. And the amazing thing is that what has come through from all the discussions and all of the walkabouts in the different districts, a lot of people say the same thing, that visitation is down, and particularly qualified visitation is down. Now, I know I've talked about that before, but it kind of gets trivialized that it's only one person, it's anecdotal. But I encourage the city to run a poll, do a survey, to find that, because I know that there was comment that, hey, we have winners and losers, some have a great year, some don't have a great year, so it's mixed. What I saw is done mixed. Downtown is in bad shape. The most interesting part of my experience was, as we did the entertainment district walkabout, they're also complaining about the daytime traffic being down. So I had this, I'm not going to put this chart up again, but it shows the daytime traffic plummeting, but it's plummeting for them too. So we thought they were eating our lunch. They're not eating a lunch. There is no lunch. Okay, so they're both, everybody is suffering from the daytime being down. I mean, it's just down. And you don't believe me? Do a survey. Do a survey of, like every merchant and see what they tell you. Now, the one thing that's interesting is that since I know about a lot of how the bed tax is structured, I've told a lot of these people that are in the task force that, as they say, why does Experience Scottsdale do something? Well, the 5% has been taken away from Experience Scottsdale now, and so now it's in the city manager's hands. And not only that, he increased it to a record $2.5 million. And that's a record number. That's a lot of money. 1.6 of it is going to be used on advertising. So now the key is Experience Scottsdale brings the visitors to the luxury resorts. How do we bring the people from the luxury resorts into Old Town? That becomes the whole mission of this $1.6 million. We don't need to even, I used to advocate for North Scottsdale, PV, Arcadia. I think the people who are qualified that we're missing in downtown are in those resorts. Just get them from the resorts into Old Town and the problem is fixed. As simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers. So before we vote on 1 through 9 and 11 through 20, I want to make a couple of comments on the agenda items. Actually, I haven't been in this position before. Ben, do you want me to pull it if I'm going to vote against it on the consent agenda items?
Yeah, Mary would need to get pulled.
I guess I'll pull that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, honestly. And then before we move on to vote on number 20, I just want to again thank Bob Pedgman, Janie White for their hard work, and Jude now for being on the mayor's task force. And I think a lot of illuminating ideas and thoughts are coming out of this, and I would love to see some of those ideas come to fruition. I think the idea that Bob just spoke about was wonderful on the walk on last Friday in 116 degrees. I heard some other very creative ideas from the group, which includes kind of a passport type thing, or not a passport, but a scavenger hunt and some other things, and cross-marketing to the different districts. So very excited about that, and without any further ado, Councilman Graham.
Mayor, I was just going to speak on the Old Town parking garage, if you're going to pull it, that's all.
I have to. Unfortunately, I don't want to, but I have to. Do I have to? I guess I do, because we're voting in a block, so yes, I'm going to.
So then I'll wait, because we're going to vote on consent.
Okay. With that, do you have a comment?
Just, I was going to make a move to adopt items 1 through 9 and 12 through
11.
13 or 20.
11 through 19. Oh, you're right. 12 through 20. Sorry.
So that's my motion.
Okay.
Second your motion.
Mayor, I just want to make sure. Item 11 was included in that motion.
Yeah, it was item number, no, 12.
So, yeah, so the conflict was on item 10, and then you want to pull item 12.
Correct. So it's 11,
Okay, yeah, so.
13 through 20.
Okay, so 13 through 20, yeah. So with, 1 through, let's see, 1 through 20 with the exception of 11 and 10, or which one's yours? 10 and 12, with the exception of 10 and 12. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, please register your vote. All right, so I'm going to comment briefly on item number 12. And, I know there's been a lot of heated conversation over.
Mayor, I apologize. Can we do 10 first, just to keep items in order?
Oh, yes, but Councilwoman DeBoscus has to excuse herself. All right. I'll make a motion to approve item number 10 on the consent agenda item.
Second.
All those in favor? It's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Good? Are we good? So item number 12, I know there's been a bunch of heated discussion on this. I first want to thank everyone for their passion, pro or con. Thank you for all the hard work that people have done to either oppose it or encourage it. I know everyone feels very strongly about it. I do want to point out that it's not fake. I don't think it's fair to say that anyone's being fake about any of this. As a lifelong Scottsdale resident and resident of Optima Camelview for 8 years, I've spent an awful lot of time in that area. And I remain committed to the opinion that that is a bad location for the garage, that is 100 paces away, my pace is 100, and I don't walk that big of steps, from a 700 space garage at the Civic Center. So I remain very committed to opposition of this. A couple of things that have come up all the time. The bond 2019, the voters did not approve this specific location. They approved 2 garages in Old Town, so that's a falsehood. At least that's not my interpretation of it. I think it's a terrible location. It's going to bring huge disruption to the historic district and to the businesses in that area. Huge disruption to the farmers market, which people have grown to know and love and have spent, a big part of their lives there. I think that's not the best use of that. The farmers market absolutely brings activity and activates that area and therefore business to the area. However, I'm glad they found an alternate location if we couldn't get a change on this parking garage. Bringing more traffic to that area by directing them to this parking garage. I think that's a terrible idea. Traffic in those little streets in the historic district is not the best plan. We are all entitled to our opinions. I don't think it's fair to say one opinion is wrong and one is right. I know we're all passionate about it. I can tell you anecdotally, before we walked on Friday last week, we were meeting at 5 o'clock over at Jude Now's Sundial Resort, right, hotel. And so I went over to just drive through Old Town and was headed toward the Mission area. And I took a video. I'm not going to bore. I should have showed it tonight, but it's not really important, I guess, at this point in time. At 4:30 in the afternoon, there were so many parking spaces right in front of the Mission, right in front of all the businesses down there. The parking garage was completely empty. I mean, if you saw that video, it's tough to say that we need parking right there on a Friday afternoon at 4:30. So not only when businesses are open, but happy hour is going on, you would think there's a lot of activity. So with that, I'm going to vote against that contract that's subject to item number 12, and I will turn it over to Councilman Graham, who also has some comments.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, this vote to me is incredibly important, incredibly simple. I think anybody who votes against this project votes against 37,000 voters that voted for it. I think that those voters told us they wanted more Old Town parking. In the packet, it said just not to relitigate. This was one of the options. All the people, all the opponents, detractors from the anti-parking group, they have had a year and a half longer. They've had many years to give us an alternate location. Just give us an alternate location. They refuse to do that because there aren't any. We just, on a consent, we just approved a massive parking garage in the bar district in the northeast quadrant. Like French Thompson said, that was voted on by 7 people, not 37,000. Right, French? The outrage is pure selective. It's selective outrage. They want a parking study for the Old Town parking garage, but nary a word about the northeast quadrant parking garage. They don't have anything to say about that. They're upset about the cost per stall in the southeast quadrant. Not a single word. Head goes right in the sand when you talk about the northeast quadrant parking. They're upset about, what may happen with this and that. Not a single thing. The outrage is pure selective. It's pure theatrical. It's pure performative. And we know because Mr. Caton told us about what we found out, a behind-the-scenes effort to use a zoning loophole to sell this parcel to a developer to cram high-density housing here, to sell this parcel to a private developer to replace it, and we would lose your parking. The mayor talked about there was, recently anecdotally she saw the spots were wide open. And she just said right before that, it was 116 degrees in June. You don't build parking for all the time. You build parking for when you need it. We've been eliminating our parking from the Old Town for years. We got rid of hundreds of spots from the Scottsdale Stadium. We've been chipping away at parking. There's been an anti-car, anti-parking effort just because of the value of the space in the whole area. And for the first time in decades, this council is finally adding parking. We want you people to come to Old Town to feel comfortable they can find a spot to park. We just supercharged and supersized the Civic Center. Voters told us to do that in the bond election. Spent $30 million doing that. A lot more capacity, a lot more events, higher demand. This is going to serve that. So, and I also heard, they never proposed an alternate location. And then the mayor mentioned that, the horror of more traffic. That means more business for our businesses, for our brick and mortars. So I'm going to stand with the 37,000 voters. I'm going to stand with the landowners that come and tell us. I'm going to stand with all the residents that told us we want more parking. And one other argument is that we expanded the farmers market steps away from a hot parking lot to a bigger space at the Civic Center, at the City Hall parking lot that has more space, more shade, places for people to actually sit on grass in shade and enjoy themselves. And the vote, anybody that talks about the farmers market, that was a 7-0 vote to relocate the farmers market, to expand it. So that needs to be pointed out. So with that, I will call the question and ask that we approve resolution number 13730. Thank you.
I'm going to respond to a couple of your statements there before we do that. And it's important to note that...
Point of order, I called the question. So
I need to respond to what you just said because you've stated a lot of false statements. So I'll be brief.
Okay, is there a second for my call to question?
I'll be brief, Councilman Graham.
Okay, so we're going to, point of order, you're out of order, Madam Mayor.
So I'll talk to Luis about this. Can you tell us what the situation is? Calling the question, we have not had full debate. Councilwoman Whitehead has been on the board and she has not had the opportunity to speak, so. And why wouldn't you want to hear what we have to say, Councilman Graham?
So Mayor and members of the council, technically calling the question ends debate. Now, the ruling can be appealed and the council can make a decision. Oh, I'm sorry. So calling the question does end debate, and the council would need to vote. The council can decide to vote against Councilman Graham's motion and then continue with debate or as it chooses fit.
I'll withdraw my call to question, but I'll just put the motion on to accept the resolution. If you accept.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if Councilwoman Whitehead has any question or comments, but I think it's important, without being overly vitriolic, to point out that three really important things. First, it's been said by a speaker and by Councilman Graham that there was a developer interested in putting high-density housing or apartments there. That is a flat-out lie, and I'm certain, because Greg Caton, our city manager, was in those meetings, as was Councilman Clausman, that the city manager did not say that, because it was, in fact, absolutely not true. There was a beautiful proposal for a boutique hotel to come to the area, which would have been really a great use, with commercial on the first level of that parking garage, keeping parking, allocating parking to the community, public parking, with 6 luxury condos on top. So I want to clear up that misunderstanding. In terms of why I didn't oppose the Northeast Quadrant parking, that's a great location. I don't generally oppose parking. I don't oppose it just because I want to oppose it. That's a great location. There's no real parking over there, parking garage. So I think that's a fabulous location. So I fully support it. And ultimately, I think all of this dialogue and diatribe boils down to the fact that we really should update a parking study. I think that would cost us very little. We wouldn't have to find ourselves in this conversation again. And you're shaking your heads no, but I don't understand why. I think it's just helpful to all of the people that, see it differently. So nonetheless, I still maintain that's a real good use of time and funds, minimal funds, to find out where we really stand. So that's all I have to say on that. And did you want to speak?
Yeah, I would like to speak to my second. Listen, we've had passionate debates for a year and a half. I've been debating this for much longer, since I have wanted the parking study since 2021. I was on this council when we approved the bond questions, and let me tell you, voters approved parking in Old Town, so they didn't approve a specific location, and our job is to find the best location for parking. Regardless, the other job we have is to accept the majority vote. And the majority vote has repeatedly moved this garage forward. It's time to move on. I'm supporting it. And I'm sure, so both sides were passionate, both sides were right. And so villainizing one side or another is just unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, let's go ahead and take a vote on item number 12. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the regular agenda, it is item number 21, the Old Town Tavern bar use and live entertainment use permits and liquor license request. I won't go through the numbers. It was the one that there was a conflict on. So I'm going to let you go ahead. Thank you. Casey Steineke. Steineke? Am I saying that right?
Steinke.
Steinke. Okay. Thank you. Senior planner.
Thank you, Mayor Borowski and council members. Casey Steinke, Scottsdale Planning Department. Here for Old Town Tavern, there's a number of sub-items associated with this, like you mentioned, 2 conditional use permits, a bar, live entertainment, in lieu parking, and then a recommendation of a liquor license to the state. Here's a look at the site. It is just east of Brown Avenue in Old Town, where Main Street intersects with the Civic Center Mall. And the zoning on this site is commercial C2 with the downtown overlay. For many of you that are familiar with the Old Town Tavern at its old location, that is highlighted in yellow, and the applicants are looking to move their operation to the building next door. That is highlighted in blue. They are currently operating a restaurant out of the western suite in this one, and are looking to add a bar with live entertainment on the east, and we'll get into the details of those momentarily. So the action requested by the applicant is to adopt resolutions for a bar use permit, a live entertainment use permit, in lieu parking credits, and then to also forward that recommendation for a Series 6 liquor license to the state on this roughly 6,000 square foot site. Here's a look at the floor plan. You can see the numbers on the left. Importantly, that line down the middle, that red line, is an existing wall that separates these 2 suites. There were always 2 suites, and the one on the west has been operating as a restaurant. The owner would like to apply a live entertainment conditional use permit across the entirety of this, but a bar conditional use permit only on the eastern half. Just briefly on the live entertainment, a couple of stipulations. They would not be able to have speakers on the exterior which are playing live entertainment. They could also not prop open any doors or windows in the interest of mitigating noise and impacts on the community. And just for reference, there are no residentially zoned uses in the area. Here's an exhaustive look at the parking requirements. The short version is the restaurant portion would require 6 parking spaces. The bar portion would require 34, and that totals 40 required parking spaces. This differs from the previous proposal, which required 58 parking spaces, which was a bar over the entirety of this site. How are they getting there? 22 credits would be through an old program called the Urban Renewal Program, and the short version of that is, in the 70s, we sold some parcels, and some of the owners that bought those chipped in to pay for a parking garage, and so we credit them the spaces that they purchased at the time for what the required parking was at that time. In the previous iteration, that was 15. We have seen new research and documents that have shown that, in fact, that number is 22. So there's an update there. The bike parking credits are the same as last time at 2, and they are requesting 16 in lieu credits, down from the 41 they were requesting previously. That is how they are hitting the mark of 40 provided parking spaces. Here's a look at some of the stipulations I mentioned, live entertainment ones with the speakers and the doors. They also, in their narrative, mention that live entertainment goes until 11 p.m. And a new potential stipulation for discussion, they have agreed to the idea of a timing stipulation so that the CUP, which typically runs with the land and typically runs in perpetuity, would exist only for 3 years unless it is otherwise amended or renewed by City Council before it expires. This item in its first form did go to Planning Commission and was recommended unanimously for approval back in January, and then this council continued that case a month later, and here we are with a revised proposal. And that is the synopsis of the staff report. We also have the applicants here to answer questions if necessary.
Thank you very much, Casey. Vice Mayor McKellen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Casey, for your presentation. And with that, I am just going to say that I am in full support of Old Town Tavern. I am a frequent visitor over the years. I have watched the entertainment that's taken place there. I think that it is a valued business in Old Town. And I would also like to say that I think that in the future, after approving this, that we need to look at our the way we structure parking for restaurants. To drag them through this has been a little outrageous in my opinion. With that, I am going to move that we approve resolution number 13592 for a bar conditional use permit. Do I need to read the whole thing, Luis, or can I just do the resolution?
It'd be better if you read the whole thing.
Okay.
My apologies.
That's okay. A bar conditional use permit on a 3,140 square foot portion of the 6,000 square foot site zoned central business downtown overlay. Adopt resolution number 13593 for a live entertainment conditional use permit for both bar and restaurant of the 6,000 square foot site zoned central business downtown overlay, C2DO. Adopt resolution number 13600 approving a request to participate in lieu of parking program for the 16 parking credits to be paid monthly for a new bar with live entertainment on a 3,140 square foot portion of the 6,000 square foot site zoned central business downtown overlay, C2DO.
Okay, before anyone moves further, I'm going to take the 2 public comments. Okay? What? Oh, you did? Did I interrupt you?
I motioned it. I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second, but I'll just wait for
Okay.
the speakers.
All right, before we debate it or take a vote, let's hear from Dan Isaac and, oh, no. William Chick first. Sorry, Dan. He was first. I don't know if it matters. Is there a William Chick here? Go right ahead, Dan.
Do I get this stuff?
Yeah, no.
Dan Isaac, address on record. In my 40-plus years of voting, I've always been a conservative, despite the fact that 3 members of the council keep sending emails claiming that I'm a Democrat. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I've always been a conservative. And as a conservative, I believe that government needs to support businesses. They need to get out of the way and let legal, respectable businesses exist. Now, there are certainly some bad actors, and the city should, through its ordinance and code enforcement, make sure that bad actors are dealt with. Old Town Tavern is not a bad actor. It's a long-term successful business loved by thousands of residents and visitors. The fact that this council has made them jump through hoops for 5 months is disgusting. It is a violation of any conservative value. Now, let's talk about parking. I'm glad Councilmember McAllen mentioned needing to review parking because the parking rules were put into place a long time ago. Life has changed. We have apps for people to get places. We have rideshare. We have a lot more people living in walking distance within Old Town. They don't need to drive. So it's time that the city review parking requirements. And although Bob and French talk about how many parking spots have been removed, they don't take into account the development that has occurred where most of the developers have actually added more parking than the minimum required in order to get it past the council. And by the way, the reason that there was no parking study needed for the Northeast Quadrant, because the last parking study clearly showed that there was a need there. And no, Barry, voters did not vote on that location for the Southeast Quadrant. And it wasn't in the pamphlet, regardless of what you say. In addition to reviewing the parking requirements for future permitting, we should also review the whole concept of a CUP. A business should not be held hostage for a change of council or whim that every 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on their CUP, they might have to close up shop. A CUP should be evergreen with automatic approval unless there is repeated violation of the conditions. That would be supportive of small businesses. Last year, we saw Adam and Barry laugh as they threatened a business owner, "We're watching you and we're only giving you 1 year on your CUP." That is not friendly for business. We need to change what we're doing so that we don't force more businesses out of Scottsdale. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Whitehead. All right, let's keep our clapping to a minimum, please.
So I'm just enthusiastically seconding this, keeping Old Town Tavern right here on the Civic Center Mall. And I also agree that a government's job is to enable businesses to succeed, not get in their way, but also we have to be flexible when we have these infill type projects, and this is exactly that. And I do think we've successfully done that here with this, and I think we had flexibility on the Old Town Tavern ownership side and among our council. So I'm happy to see this go through. Congratulations, I hope.
All right, I don't see any other comments, so with that, let's take a vote. All right. Moving right along. All right, let's keep that down, please. Okay, so moving on to public comment, which is on non-agendized items, which is reserved for Scottsdale citizens, business owners, and our property owners to comment on non-agendized items that are within the council's jurisdiction. No official council action can be taken on these items, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. And if you wish to speak on a non-agendized topic and you have not already registered, please do so. So I only have 2 non-agendized public speakers. The first one is Dan Isaac, and the second one is Patty Badnock.
Dan Isaac, address still on record. I want to go back to some of the actions that this council made a year and a half ago when they eliminated DEI, even though the city never had E, because I, as a conservative, am opposed to E, which would be any preferential hiring, quotas, preferential promotion. But this council removed anything that the city could do that could be conceived or construed to be diversity related. Because of that, the city manager sat down with, I believe, Adam, but I could be wrong, and went through various funding and removed them. One of them was Juneteenth, because even though that's a national holiday, apparently it's too black, and therefore we can't spend money on it. And we certainly can't put a pride flag up in June, because that's money, because we know Adam and Jan hate gays. So, here's a question. How on earth we have hundreds of religious places of worship in Scottsdale? We have dozens on major roads. Yet one is being singled out for a crosswalk, specifically because the observant Orthodox cannot drive. And as I said at a prior meeting, I respect observant religious people. I believe it is important to the social fabric of the United States. And I would never do anything that, and I rarely use absolutes, take away somebody's right to worship. But it seems to me that if we are making an exception for a crosswalk based on a small religious group, we are violating our anti-DEI, because there has been no discussion about whether that money should be spent at other religious institutions. There's been no discussion of whether that money should be spent where there's higher number of pedestrians. There is no doubt that this would make it safer for the observant Jews. But that is a violation of our anti-DEI rules, because it is making a decision on spending $600,000 for a small group based on their religious practices. And so I think the council needs to direct our city attorney and city manager to review whether this is a violation. Because if we can't spend $19,000 on a Juneteenth celebration because it's too black, how can we spend $600,000 for a small group based on religious observances? Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have, do you want to wait till, go ahead. Excuse me, Councilman Quasman.
Thank you. I'll respond to that. The words of the last speaker are beneath contempt. I can speak for everybody up in on this dais that our fellow man, black, white, our fellow man who is straight, gay, our fellow man who is Christian, no religion, Jewish, they are all made in God's image. They are somebody who everybody deserves respect. Everybody deserves to be loved. And there is absolutely no place for any type of hate in that heart. I am so unbelievably proud to have gotten rid of DEI, because there is one thing I do hate, and that's socialism. And I will continue to fight against that every step of the way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And lastly, we have Patty Badnock.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, 50-year resident of Scottsdale. What do I wish to speak about? Process, intent, integrity. The 2019 bond, where there were 58 projects, cloaked into 3 questions that passed. 63, which was the garage, was not to select a site. There were no written specifics about where the garage should go. This bond passed 7 years ago. This council majority rendered no allowance for a current review where else a garage could be built. And when the bonds are not individually selected for a yes or no, you have to consume the poison pill for what you don't want in order to get what you do. To set further need for more parking, here's what the city has done pretty much in the past, not this specific current council, but this is what happened. The city sold city-owned public parking spaces to the Giants for a practice field. That was about 500 parking spaces we lost right there. Sold additional parking to Honor Health, went back and forth next to the Brown Garage, and sold further parking spaces located at the Pepperwood site. Obviously, the intent of the city has been to incrementally disvalue the historic site. After participating on the 4 district walking tours, subject matter relative to marketing, there was noted agreements of the city's neglect. Not noted, but should have been, they moved the George Antognoli yearlings, which was a focal point of our Western character, to provide an entrance to the Civic Center Mall. But it was noted that the plaza's purpose, besides entertainment events, would further compromise the bricks and mortar shops to provide more tent venues, selling and competing similar things during the highest tourist season. I would like to see all of that evaluated, and let's bring in a higher interest to keep the most western town, or move it. But let's not just mess around with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Okay, we don't have any citizens petitions, so moving on to mayor and council items. These are, now I've closed public comment. But let's see. I'm going to start with item 23. I've brought all these forward. I think all 3 of them are mine. So when I attended the U.S. Mayor's Conference in Long Beach a month or so ago, really occurred to me that we should be looking at a couple of things. One is a large water user ordinance. We all had a lot of discussion about Axon, where the water, was potentially an issue. I personally received legal advice from our city attorney that we could not require them to bring their own water. If we did, we would potentially be subject to being sued. So I know the city of Phoenix, there's plenty of other municipalities that do this. They have a large water user ordinance, and that is to include requirements to either they source, this is an unknown, so I'll be asking the city manager and the city attorney to work on this, hopefully with the support of the council, to bring forward a work study discussion or an agenda item if it doesn't warrant a work study, that even might be better, but to discuss requiring large water users to the tune of 250,000 acre-feet or more, not acre-feet, excuse me, gallons per year or more, forward to discuss having conservation plan, sourcing potentially and purchasing their own water, having, some sort of a circulatory system, for example, in the event a data center comes forward where it would be fully insulated in addition to sourcing and burning their own water. So I guess I'll take these separate, but they're very similar in terms of the other data center ordinance potential idea for an ordinance. So I will take them separate. I will make a motion on number 1 to agendize a work study discussion or an agenda item on a general council meeting to bring forward opinions and recommendations from our charter officers to deal with large water users.
Second.
And then Councilwoman DeBascos has a comment.
So are you doing number one?
Number one, yeah.
I would just, I'm happy to support that, and I would just request that that be part of our discussion when we have our water workshop to come. So I think all those are a nice dovetail topic. And that would apply, I assume we're going to do the same thing for the data centers, and so my comment would apply for the data centers as well.
Okay, then with one caveat, I just want to add to my motion that on the next regularly scheduled agenda, or for a work study or agenda, and that would be sometime in August, one of those two meetings. So I would really like to bring that forward without further delay. Both this and the water discussion, I think that's a great idea.
As far as timing, I don't know. We have to look at the agenda, but.
Yeah, the next available regularly scheduled council meeting.
That would be tomorrow.
No, because it's too soon, but I'm saying the next one that isn't, fully stocked. The next practical, available agenda item, which I think is going to be in August, but is that okay with you? That we include the work study, and put it on the next regularly scheduled, available agenda. Okay, we have a first and a second. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes, Councilwoman Quasman.
I just want to, I'm okay with August, it's fine, next available. I just want to, if the feds are going to make a ruling and it happens to be like, it'll come out like August 4th, I really don't want to do a meeting and then have the Fed ruling. Can we just wait till the Fed ruling and find out exactly what's going on until we have the meeting? And that's because we're just going to have another meeting after the Fed ruling.
Well, so that could become a much
Okay, if the feds wait, how about this one? In just reasonable. If the feds are going to like delay, we got to have it in the late summer. I agree with you. I think we should have a meeting in August at some point. But if it's looking like the feds aren't going to make a ruling in August or before that, let's go ahead. I'm 100% in support of that. But if we know like a Fed ruling's coming out on like August 10th and we have a meeting the first week of August, and we're going to put it on that meeting, can we just delay it the extra? Would you be okay with delaying it the extra week?
So we don't have to
That's all I'm
muddy
saying.
we don't have to muddy the waters. I would like to see them combined. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
However, this is in a vacuum. That doesn't really involve the rest of the water conversation. Having a large water user ordinance that has additional requirements for a large water user. So we can do that individually, and we can combine it with the water work study if it's good timing. Okay.
Right.
Are we all in agreement on this? Oh, City Attorney.
Mayor and members of the council, I was just going to say our next scheduled meetings for August are the 23rd and the 24th.
Yeah,
24th and 25th, excuse me.
that would be great. So, Councilman Graham.
I just want to sort of express that I don't know when the water work study we were going to do was scheduled. Can I ask maybe City Manager, when was that? Did you have that in mind, a kind of scheduled timing on that?
Madam Mayor and Councilman Grant, actually the City Clerk and I just met today to look at some fall scheduling, and when council takes its break, it's not uncommon that when your first meetings come back, they're really loaded up with, my words, kind of procedural items, and that could be really long agendas. So we had tentatively identified September as a good opportunity because we'll have the information that Councilman Quasman was referencing in his comments, and then it's past that surge kind of. If you're open for a long meeting, we would be available in August, but it's likely very full agendas when you come back.
Why don't we just say August or September? That way we give staff a little bit of flexibility. Then I would support it.
Yeah, listen, if you have our meetings fully set, which I don't think we do, but whatever, we don't want to be here for 10 hours. So the next available, practicable meeting, which is sometime in August or September. Okay, are we good?
Yep.
So with that, we'll take a vote. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 24, and this is a zoning ordinance that would apply to data centers. And we could see one coming, hopefully not, but we could, and which would explore creating more specific requirements for a data center, in particular, significant noise abatement and water conservation, having a circulatory system, I forget the term that they use for it, where it's a fully insulated system that brings their own water and maintains their own water, recycles it, and uses it for cooling devices. So it's definitely something that is possible, and I think we should get that on the books as soon as possible. I wouldn't want to see that coming forward when an application was coming forward at the same time. So with that, I'll make a motion to agendize. I don't know that we need a work study. I'll leave it up to staff. If there's just an agenda item that can include a discussion, an action item, I think that's probably more expeditious. So I'll make a motion for that and leave it at the discretion of staff as well.
Second.
Okay. Anyone have any comments on this one? With that, we will take a vote. And then lastly, I would like to see us work on our process for charter officer evaluations and in particular salary discussions. When I was on the council 2008 to 2010, we did a lot of the actual debate on these charter officer reviews, probably more directed at the salary discussions. And I think in furtherance of transparency and full disclosure to the general public, I do think it's important to have meaningful discussions when it comes to salaries in the open session. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping the evaluations because I know there's an HR aspect to it or employment contract aspect to it, but for sure we've done this in the past where we have meaningful discussions about salaries. After our recent charter evaluations and salary decisions, I had a lot of inquiries as to, why did that happen? What did it mean? I just think in the interest of transparency and public information, I think that's a better way to go. So I would like to see us, I'm happy, I know City Attorney, you circulated a memo. I think that it's worthy of getting an independent legal opinion on this, since it does affect a charter officer, you, the City Attorney. I would really appreciate seeing that happen and to see if, what the limitations would be. I know what I think. I read your memo. I just think this is important. So I'm going to make a motion to bring forward some options as to how we go about shedding transparency and light on this discussion and allowing really the public to provide input too and feedback. And bring that forward as an agenda item or a work study. Anybody have a second? No one's going to second. Oh, Councilwoman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. I would not be supportive of this. Something like this is never done in business when you're evaluating your officers in a business situation, and that is basically what this is a large public business. I do not think it's for the well-being of the city, nor of the charter officers, nor frankly of the council. So I would not be in favor of this. It would be way too easy for this to be turned around into an attack dog type situation. And receivers, we need to improve government. Yes, we need to improve what we do. We need to make sure that our decisions are wise and in alliance and in conformity with our laws and our charter. But those are the things that our charter officers help us do. And their salaries are comparative to other cities and other officers. And I think that it's a private thing. I think it's something that we discuss in our executive sessions and that we discuss one-on-one with our charter officers. We don't even discuss them together. And I think it's inappropriate to do this in a public arena. Thank you. For one thing, we'll lose our charter officers.
Vice Mayor McCallum.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say that I kind of agree with both of you. I think that there needs to be a little more transparency from the citizen side. I do think citizens should be able to say how they feel their interactions with their charter officers are. Maybe we could look at an opportunity to have citizens give input, not in the evaluation, but just like we do on any type of service or process, that a month prior, they could just have comments that they choose. That way we could take that into consideration, because we don't deal with the charter officers in the same way that the public does. And so I see a little bit of need for transparency for the public for that aspect. But to evaluate charter officers in the public arena, I also could see what Councilwoman Littlefield said. That would be a great, horrific way for people who have a vendetta to bring it against those people. And you don't do that in the business realm, like she said. However, I do see the need for a little more transparency. Just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. And before I call on Councilwoman Quasman, just to be clear, I think the evaluations should be kept in executive session. I think the salary discussion and debate about, not debate, but discussion should be in the open. Go ahead, Councilman Quasman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to be supporting this. I understand where you're coming from, Madam Mayor. I don't think this is coming from a bad place. I think that this is going to be very political, and it will only create more tensions in a world where 90%, no offense to our wonderful charter officers, 90% of Scottsdale residents have no idea who you are. But same with us, by the way. So I know, it's a good thing. And I think that this is only going to be used as a saber politically. And I'm not going to mention, I just saw certain heads nodding, but I think that that this is just not. I would support alongside Vice Mayor McCallum if people wanted to submit a comment session, if we want to have just a single comment session. But we technically can do that, right? We come out, and when we have our final vote on the salaries, people can come and speak to it. But let's just be honest, when we do these charter special meeting, nobody's there anyway, because it's not interesting to 90% of the people, because unless it's used politically, and it's always going to make one newspaper article about something, and that's it. And so to me, this is a miss.
Okay. Well, it dies for lack of a second. City Attorney.
Mayor and members of the council, I consulted with my colleague, Mr. Lane, and currently members of the public can submit written comments already during the charter officer evaluations, while it is uncommon and it has happened in the past. So there is already a system in place, more or less, for what the vice mayor and the councilman were talking about.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on, let's turn to the work study session, which of course provides a, did you have someone? Oh, Councilman Graham, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add, that happened this year. We got a comment. Somebody submitted a letter and I think at those meetings, can there be public comment when we do the?
Currently, they're not agendized for public comment.
Okay.
They're just agendized for written comment.
Right, maybe we can look at that or something, but, okay, so there's no action then being taken on this from what I hear, so thank you.
Died for lack of a second. So work study session, moving right along. This is a less formal setting for mayor and council to discuss specific topics, in this case, the state legislative update, and provide each other and city staff with discussion and potential direction. So I will turn it over to Sarah Sparman, Government Relations Manager, and Dr. Mark Osborne with Kutech Rock to present. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sarah Sparman, Government Relations Manager for the City of Scottsdale. Here tonight, I have Mark Osborne. He's going to give you a very brief overview of the legislative session. Please, I invite you to ask questions if you have it. He's going to keep it brief. I know USA is playing right now, and it's elimination. So, but it was a great season. The legislature sine died the early morning of June 13th, and so all told, I think we came out fairly unscathed this year, which is helpful. But I'll let Mark kind of walk you through some of those highlighted topics.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, Mark Osborne with Kutek Rock. I can either walk you through the presentation, but I've been advised by Little Birdie that you would like a very abbreviated outline, so I will take your guidance. I see heads nodding with the abbreviated approach. So I'm going to touch on seven key things. And given that the World Cup's going on, the legislative session was kind of like a draw. We didn't score a whole lot, but we didn't lose either. And so that's kind of the theme. Key things that we worked on this session. The biggest one is we spent a lot of time defending your ability to create or protect your community through zoning, design standards. There were very aggressive efforts to try to strip cities of that. We were able to defeat those in conjunction with other cities. I think, as I've spoken to you guys before, the interest in doing radical zoning and design review reform is starting to wane. 3 years ago, it was at its peak. Each year, it seems to dissipate, and local control seems to be eking back, but it's still a battle, Second thing is we protected local control over law enforcement tools. There's a lot of interest as technology's coming on, whether it's Flock, whether it's other technologies. There is one part of the legislature that says let's put some reasonable guidelines on these technologies to make sure privacy and civil liberties are protected. And then you have a more radical, aggressive, these technologies are so dangerous that we don't want to use them. And so we've been dealing with that issue. And just in the soccer analogy, at the end of the game, it was a draw. No one scored. Neither kind of approach passed, which still really provides local governments with that flexibility to use those law enforcement tools. Airbnb reform, we made a little progress. We're not quite there yet. I always look at some of these issues are multi-year issues. We've pushed the ball forward quite a bit, and I'm optimistic next year we'll be able to have some breakthroughs as well, because I think some of the key legislators that were stoppers for us they will not be in those same positions, so I think we'll have more opportunities. And as I said, momentum is growing on the Airbnb. I do think one of the things I would recommend is we're going to try to get some legislators out to tour your community and actually show them what concentrated Airbnbs look like for local communities. Another big win for us is making sure that we were still, as a community, eligible for the infrastructure reimbursement program. One of the things the legislature did was extend that program, but they put in a whole series of new requirements that we would not have met, but we were able to make sure that we were grandfathered in under the old program, and there'll be enough resources. And we worked with city staff to make sure they got their application in a timely manner to do that. On the budget front, kind of status quo. No cuts, no new money, but given where the state was fiscally, they did enact near full conformity on HR 1, so they had to make some cuts to fund those tax cuts. Usually they try to take a little piece out of the cities. They didn't do that this time, which is good news, and we feel comfortable. I think another good positive coming out of this session is we continue to build relationships with our local delegation and expand those. There were times when they were on the floor that members would be texting Sarah and I, hey, I'm not familiar with this bill, where are you guys at? I think that's a nice step from where you kind of, the issues we had this session before. And then lastly, we spend a lot of time protecting kind of the on the criminal justice side, making sure we still had strong and fair laws that didn't weaken our ability to keep the public safe. And so that Luis and I got to know each other quite well over the session as we plugged along on those issues. If there are specific questions about specific bills, happy to answer. All of you should have received a end of session report. That report will detail every bill that has been enacted, some narratives on the budget. Always open to answer any council members' questions, and be happy to answer any questions from there.
Thank you very much. We do have Councilwoman DeBoscos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mark, for coming tonight. I really like your idea of bringing some of the members to meet with some of the neighborhoods for the short-term rentals. And we have a task force, or I don't know if that's the right word, but we have a group that looks through, so we can find some folks who would be really good for that kind of a conversation. We did the Barrett-Jackson tour, and you and I had talked about perhaps doing a hike in the preserve, maybe in the fall. Is that something that's still in the works? And
Mayor, Councilman DeBoscos, yes, outreach ideas. The one that we're also focused on too is maybe creating kind of a rodeo caucus to kind of highlight Westworld. So here's the kind of concept is we have this amazing asset. The Barrett-Jackson thing was a big hit. I think we're going to do that again.
Good.
We're also looking to build that kind of idea on the rodeo side, so people and the other horse events. Fall rodeo seemed like the best event. The idea is to get so many people to touch this. So if we get some budget surpluses or if there's some windows of opportunity, all of a sudden we can grab resources to do that because people are familiar with the needs and we have some other strategies we're working. And then we could figure out other kind of opportunities to get people to touch and feel our community. And you know, we've also talked a little bit about a tourism tour, like here are all the assets of tourism from the state, those type of things. So I think my recommendation is as much as you're willing to help guide some of these and different people with different folks, we'd be happy to kind of help find willing legislators to come out and visit and go from there.
great. Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor McCallum.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Mark, abbreviated. I would like to just continue to encourage you to chip away at the short-term rentals. That is probably the most emails I receive is about our lack or the ability for us to enforce a little more. I know we just recently changed our short-term rental definition of an event center, and so that'll give us a little more teeth, but anything we can do to bring back local control, just anything you need from us, let us help you. And if that means us going down to the legislator to talk, let's do it. We just need to have control back of our own city. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I agree. I think having them feel and touch and see what that looks like, you know, I think if people went up to Sedona and drove Sedona, and you can say, oh, these blocks are all same with our community, these blocks, and here's where that school is going to close because here's all the secondary impacts, and so we need some balance here. I think that, so that pendulum is changing. I think the other thing that people are opening their eyes to is the fact that some of the apartments now have Airbnbs in them. And so when you're talking, for some of those coalition people who are like, no local zoning because we want affordable housing, well, then on the other hand, if all these apartments are becoming de facto mini hotels, that kind of works against that second concept. And so, so there's opportunities. There'll be different messages for different people, but we just need to grind away, and then when an opportunity opens up, and one of the things I would like to do is get a lot of you introduced to Representative Bliss, who was a champion because she represents Sedona, but she's really good about working with other communities.
Happy to help in any way I can. I love the
Happy to
idea of
help.
the tour.
All right, Councilwoman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what you're doing. I think it's great. One of the thoughts I just had after listening to you, can we ask them what they would like to see in Scottsdale? Do they often have any kind of viewpoints or interests that perhaps would make it easier to have them come out here and see what they want to see?
Absolutely. I think the idea is we want to build a relationship with these legislators, both our delegation and then different from the past is bringing in other people who may have an impact. Like, why would Representative Bliss, who lives up in Prescott area, want to come down here? Well, she wants to see because we have an issue in common. Same thing with, I'll give you another great example, Senator Sundaration. She's the minority leader, one of the big leaders on water policy. Come and see what we're doing with our community. So everyone may have a different interest, and then some cases we'll partner with other regional communities so you get kind of a regional look as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Whitehead.
Yeah, I have to say Representative Bliss is amazing. So the time to start on next session is now, and I know you know that, so I might be reaching out too because we started too late. The time to start is now. And interesting, you mentioned Tucson, the regional and water. Things that Scottsdale has done very, very well are different from what Tucson has done very well. And Tucson has been really good at capturing runoff, and they have a whole green infrastructure. So that would be an interesting tour for people up here to go see that as well. But anyway, so yeah, I would say let's get started for our top priorities early. Thanks.
Yeah, lobbying is a full-time business. Everyone thinks we work 4 months out of the year. That's what I thought when I got into the business, but I was wrong. But yes, it starts now, and the good news is we started late because of the transition, but Sarah and I have a full year, well, not full year, 6 months now to build that, and we're working on that aggressively.
Councilman Quasman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mark, you threw on your goalie jersey this year, and I just want to thank you for everything you did. The outcome is palpable, especially compared to last year. I mean, it really is. We see the difference, and I think we really found our lobbyist for the long run and our government affairs person. And I just want to end with cautioning the members about if we want to make sure that we're speaking with legislators through Mark, because honestly, as a former legislator, we don't. City council members did not do well on Washington Street. I just want to make sure that it's extremely precision when we speak to people and not flock them for flock cameras, right? And it's just they don't want to see us.
To that point, I think Sarah and I's job is to curate you guys so that we match you with the right legislators. Mr. Quasman and I've known you for a long time. There's certain legislators I would not put you in front of, and vice versa. It's just a matter of, I always remember we were having a dinner with the Queen Creek people, and there was one of the more progressive council members of Queen Creek. There's not a lot. And just happened to sit next to one of the most conservative legislators at the dinner, which was not by design, and we just sat there going, please go out.
I just want to remind Dr. Osborne that my roommate when I was at the legislature was Andrew Sherwood.
All right, I don't see any more questions. You heard me talk about the large water users idea. I don't know if that probably will need to involve the state at some point, depending on how extreme we go. So look forward to having discussions about that. With that, there's no other questions. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, and we're moving on to council members' updates. So anyone have anything to? Vice Mayor McAllen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that this July 4th at Westworld, super huge special event and barbecue. Welcome all the citizens to attend.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. I don't see anyone else. Thank you so much.